Hi and welcome to cgwoo.com. My name is Hans Eriksson and welcome to day 5 of my work in progress for my logo and web header. And today we're going to be making the Blender record, the Blender record player. I've been kind of working on it, and I've done a little test video. As you can see, I've gotten somewhat started on my record player. Now I've got a long ways to go. The lights are not set up correctly. I'm not sure if I really like the texture all that much on the wood. The faceplate here is definitely not the right color. I had a little trouble finding a bronze texture for it, so I'm in the process of making one right now. This is actually a brushed aluminum texture that I just added a little bit of color to it. I need to darken this fabric up a little bit, and I think the stylus looks just terrible. The record's just a little bit out of round, and I need to work on that as well. But all in all, being just a test, you can see I've made some progress on it. You did this on a model that I found on the internet. However, I can't really share the model with you because of copyright infringement. I've changed quite a bit of it, so what I can do is take some screenshots of this model and share those as reference materials for you. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to start modeling this record player, and we're going to do it over time. And today we're going to start with the basic shape of the record player, the base, the turntable, the lid, and also the hinges in the back. Now I did also make there's a little bracket that's supposed to go between here, and I did make the bracket, but I didn't have time to animate it, so I'll get that done at a later date and share it with you all. So let's go ahead and get started here, and as you can see, I'm at my default scene in Blender, and the first thing we're going to do is, just as every good tutorial starts, we're going to take the default cube and delete it. Now the first things that we need to do to get started is, one, make sure that your cursor is in exactly the center of the field, and you do that with Shift S and cursor to center. The next thing is make sure that you're on Blender Render and not Blender Game. And the third thing here, the next thing is, make sure that your setting is set to GSL or GLSL and not multi-texture, and I'll explain that a little bit later on. Lastly, make sure that this icon down here is changed to solid, and we'll be switching between solid. Let me put the default cube back up there, and I'm going to show you. We'll go mesh add cube, but anyways, I'm going to be switching between solid or object mode, between solid view and wireframe, and I'll be switching through that quite a bit. Now, one thing, make sure that your left hand is always on the keyboard, and you can switch between those views by toggling Z. That's all I'm doing, is toggling Z, and you'll find that very useful and very handy when you're trying to see through your mesh or see things behind your mesh. So just make sure that those settings are exactly this way. You're in Blender Render. Your display is set to GLSL. Your cursor is in the center, and you are set to solid view. And we'll start there, and we're good to go. And one more thing, it's always good to make sure that you're not in user perspective when we're modeling, especially with references, but slip yourself into orthographic and you can do that by hitting 5 on your numpad. So we're going to front view, and with the cube selected, I'm going to hit X and delete it. And the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load my reference images. And we're going to add a couple images. Now, if you open up my PDF on my website, you'll be able to get those reference images. I just loaded the front view, and you can leave it to the size that it is. That size is just fine. The thing is we want to raise that reference image up the y-axis until it is, kind of zoom in so you see that red line there. You want to be right on that red line. Let me just move it down just a little bit more, right about there. I've got it at 4.46 right now. I think on my other file I was on 4.45. But just make sure you're right on that line, because this is right on the bottom of the center of the floor here in Blender, and that's where we're going to be adding our first object. Okay, next thing is hit 3 on your numpad. Move to side view. One thing that I forgot is we needed to set, let me go back to front view. When I loaded that reference image, we needed to set that view to, I think, front. There we go. Now, make sure that you're in orthographic view, because if we go into perspective view, you won't be able to see it, and that's because you can't see references in perspective view. You've got to be in orthographic. Alright, we're going to collapse this because that's good. We're going to add another image, and that image is going to be in references. It's going to be the record player model side view, and we're going to open that up, and we're going to set that one for, I believe it's right. And let me switch to side view. There we go. And again, that needs to be raised up. Let's see if that worked. 4.456. And that looks pretty good. Alright, the third image that I'm going to load is if you go into top view, we're going to collapse that. We're going to add one more image, and I've got a record in there as well. So we're going to open that up, open up the references. We're going to take our record and open it up, and we're going to set it to top view. And then I'm going to scroll over here, and I'm going to take the opacity and turn it all the way down to 0 because I don't want it on just yet. But when we do use it, we're just going to turn the opacity back up so that we can see it, and it's fine exactly where it is. Okay, now let's get started. The very first thing we're going to do is add a while we're in top view, which we entered by going number 7 on the pad. We're going to hit Shift A to add mesh plane. You're going to notice that everything is added in Blender when you're modeling as either a plane, circle, and sometimes a cube. Sometimes we use other objects, but we generally stay with either a plane, a circle, and a cube. Okay, now I'm going to switch to front view, and you can see, I'm going to turn that widget off because I just find it really distracting. We can see our plane right here, and we're going to hit S, scale, X for the x-axis, and we're going to drag it along until we're all the way to the bottom excuse me, all the way through the bottom from one end to the other end. Then we're going to slip to the side view, and we're going to hit S to scale, this time for the y-axis, and we're going to scale it that way, and again we're going to go all the way to the end there, just like that. Then going back into front view, I'm going to go into edit mode by hitting tab on my numpad, E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude up right up to there, just to the top of my molding there. And if you have a hard time seeing, all you got to do is hit Z on your numpad or Z on your keyboard, and that'll switch you into wireframe mode, and you can see exactly what you're doing. Then I'm going to hit S again for scale, or excuse me, I'm going to hit E to extrude again. I'm going to escape that by using my right mouse button, and I'm going to scale it in using my S key to right about there. Now if you want to slow down the amount of scaling, if you hit the shift key, that will also slow it down so you got a little better control. And then right click, and we got it. Now because this is an oblong, if I go to 3 on my numpad, you'll see that it didn't scale as much on the side there, so we're going to go scale again. This time we're going to constrain it to the y-axis, and we're going to scale it inward until we are right there. Now hitting, let me back up there, hitting E on my pad again, I'm going to hit E, and I'm going to scale all the way up until I get to the top of the base. I'm not going to go all the way to the lid. And I'm going to zoom in to see this right here is just like a little part of the molding, and here's the actual top of my base. So that is pretty much got it. I'm going to go back into my this time now I'm going to go into top view by hitting 7 on my numpad, and I'm going to hit E to extrude, S to scale, and I'm going to scale it slightly. Hold on here. I'm going to hit, let me see, did I extrude actually? Let me check. G, and no, it didn't extrude. Okay, so I'm going to hit E to extrude, S to scale, and I'm going to scale it slightly in, and something's wrong. I'm going to pause the recording for a second while I check and see what's wrong. Okay, I'm sorry, Blender just had a little glitch there for a second, so I had to kind of reload everything. I'm going to hit E to extrude, S to scale, and it's still not working. I'll be right back again. Okay, I'm back. I found out it wasn't Blender, but it was a system thing with my computer. So anyways, we're going to hit E to extrude, then right click out of it, and then we're going to S to scale, and we're just going to scale it slightly in, just about that far. Now you'll notice that I've scaled further in the X direction than I did the Y direction. So now I'm going to kind of zoom in so I can get a little bit better feel for it. I'm going to collapse this window here to give me a little more room, and I want to try and make this as wide as this. So I'm going to hit scale, and I'm going to constrain it to the Y-axis by hitting Y, and I'm just going to slowly kind of drag that in like that until I'm about even, and that looks pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to go back up onto my front view by hitting 1 on my numpad, and I'm going to hit E to extrude, and this time I'm just going to scale it down, and I'm having a problem here. Let me step back. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. I may have to get a fresh install of Blender because this one seems to be doing something here. G, K, E to extrude. Scale it all the way up to right about there. Go to top view. E to extrude. Then S. Scale it in slightly. And let me look. Now that is working that time. Okay. Don't understand what was happening before. We're going to now scale along the y-axis. And, oops. Scale some y. There we go. That looking fairly good right there. Go to front view. And then I'm going to E to extrude, and I'm just going to drag this down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this down to right about there so that I'm just about the same length down this way as I am up this way. Now what I've done is I'm going to switch back out of wireframe, is I've created this box here, given it some thickness over on the side here as if it's a solid piece of wood, and then put in a floor. And that's pretty basically all I've done. So I'm going to slip back into top view. Now I'm going to change to face mode here real quick. And I'm going to choose these four faces by left clicking and then shift left clicking on the rest of them. Just these four faces. I'm going to go back into front view, and I'm going to go shift D to duplicate them. Then E to extrude, and I'm going to bring this up until I'm just about almost to the top, right about there. Because now I'm making the top of the lid, and I want it to look as though the lid is got a solid piece of wood in there and just not a two-dimensional nothing. Okay, now I'm going to hit extrude again. No, I'm going to then switch to edge mode. I'm going to go back into top view, and I'm going to select these outer lines, just like that. Because now I only want to take up the outer edge. I'm going to slip back into front view, E to extrude, and I'm going to take it, constrain it on the Z-axis, and take it all the way up to the top here, just like right about there. That's pretty good. Go back into top view. Now I'm going to hit vertex mode, and if you can see here, what I've got now is I've got the inside of my top lid, and I'm going to hit that vertex there. I'm going to select this vertex over here by staying shift select. I'm then going to hit that one, click that one, and then I'm going to hit F, which will create a face. Now the top side of the inside of my lid now has a complete face on it. Now I want to do the same thing for the top. I'm going to choose this corner, that corner, that corner, and this one. I'm going to hit F, and now we have a solid piece there. But I don't like having these two little, I don't like the sides here, I don't like having two faces. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go into face mode, and I'm going to choose that face and that face, and I'm going to hit X to delete faces. Now all I have to do, there was actually a quicker way of doing that too, and we're going to show that in just a minute. I'm going to then go into edge mode. I'm going to hit that line and this line, and I'm going to hit F, and I've just now created a face. And I deleted the face, but I didn't delete that one line. So I'm going to select that line, I'm going to hit X and delete that edge. There we go, now that edge is gone. So we're going to come over here and we're going to hit this edge, because I'm in edge select. I'm going to hit X to delete edges, and that effectively deleted that face as well. Then I'm going to hit this edge, and I hit the wrong edge. There we go, and hit F, and now I've created that face. I'm going to come over here and hit this edge here, X, delete edges, select that edge, shift select that edge, hit F. Now I've created that, and select that edge, X, delete edges. Then I'm going to select this edge and this edge, F, and I've got, that just looks much cleaner, much cleaner. When we're texturing, you're going to find that that's going to be a great help. Alright, I'm going to, now I see that my light is right in the way there, so I'm just going to go into top view, shrink this down here, grab this light maybe. I may do it right there, and just hit G, and I'm just going to drag it away, just kind of get it out of my way. Alright, go back into front view, hit Z, just kind of check and make sure everything lines up okay. That looks pretty good. Go into side view, same thing, everything looks fine, and we are now ready to start on the next step. Now the one thing I want to caution everybody about is if we look in our outliner deal here, let me go back into solid mode here. If we look in our outliner, right up here, or you'll notice that I've got a plane, and that's all I've got right now, because I didn't do something before. And what I want to do is I want to separate my lid from my base. So by hovering over one of these vertexes up here, I just hit L, because basically this is not connected right now to the base at all. And if I hit L, and that vertex here did not go away, so let me, and that should have, let me hit X to delete that vertex. I had some hangover vertexes there that didn't go away, so I'm going to get rid of those right now too. There we go. Okay, cleaner. So now if I hang my, just anywhere over one of these vertexes and I hit L, that'll select my entire lid. So now I'm going to hit P, separate by selection, and now I've got two different objects. I have my lid here. Let me go into object mode. There we go. I've got my lid, and I've got my base. However, if you look right now, one is called plane 001 and one is called plane. And by the time we get done adding objects to all of this, it's going to get very confusing in your outliner if you don't know. You're not going to be able to memorize what's plane and what's plane 001. So if we hover our mouse over this area here, hit Control and then left click, we're able to change the names. Now we could also do it by going over here and changing the name here. But I find it much easier to just go ahead and go to my outliner, hit Control, left click, and we'll call that, well, if I stay on my deal there, we'll call that RC base. And then I'll select the plane 0.001, Control left click, and I'll call this RC lid. It's an extremely good idea to always stay on top of naming your different objects. Okay, now that my base is selected, I'm going to slip down to the bottom here, and I'm going to just go into edit mode, go to face select, and well, I wasn't in the right one there. There we go. Base, slip into edit mode, choose this bottom here and hit X and delete that face. Don't need it. Don't even want it. Alright, I'm going to go back into object mode. I'm going to select my lid. I'm then going to hit M, and I'm going to move that lid to the bottom layer. Now all I've really done is, by doing that, all I've really done is I've just put it in a different layer, and in Blender we have all these different layers that we can put objects in. So if I choose this little dot down here, I'll have my lid. If I choose this, I'll have my top, and if I shift select, I have both. So it's a very handy way, and if I shift select that again, it's gone. So it's just a very handy way of kind of keeping track of your objects, and if you want to get rid of them, you can. A second way to get rid of them, if let's say they're both in the same field, is I can come over here and this little eye, I can just click it off, and it'll stay what's called hidden. I can even keep it from being rendered if I take a picture of it by hitting that little icon there, and I can also keep it from ever being selected by hitting that icon. But what I generally do is, if I just want to get something out of the way, I'll just move it to a different layer, and I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to go into top view, choose the base. Might be easier at this point to go ahead and get back into wireframe mode. Sometimes you can see things a little bit better that way, sometimes not. I'm then going to hit, I'm going to stay in 7 here. I'm then going to hit tab to go into edit mode, and I'm going to select this top face right here. Now, right now you can see that my cursor is still perfectly centered. However, well, let me see, there we go. However, it's down on the floor, and what I really want is I want this cursor up here right now, because whatever object I now add is going to be added at the cursor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Shift S, selection to, or cursor to selection. Now my cursor is right up there, because the next object I add, I want it to be added to this face. In fact, I want it added right in the center of the face. So going back into top view, I'm going to hit S, or excuse me, Shift A to add a mesh, and I'm going to want to add a circle. Over here, I want to take this vertex count, and I want to change it to 16. 32 is just way too big, and that looks pretty good for me. Now I'm going to go over to my display by hitting N. I'm going to go down over here where I had all those, let me see, where are they? Ah, there they are, my reference images, and if you remembered, I had that reference image in there, and I am going to turn the opacity right back up to let's say 5 or something like that. I just want to be able to see it. Now, that record is obviously way too big for our record player. And what I want it to do is I want it to be able to fit it right inside these sides here. So I am going to size it down, and right about there looks pretty good. Let me just take it just a little bit less, let's say right about there, so that if I was to play a record, it would play within the sides of the bounds of the box that I have here. And the reason I put this in here is if I hit E, or excuse me, if I go into edit mode, let me see, I got to choose that circle again. Which, there we go. Okay, and I see, oh, I know what's wrong. B, box select. Blender is glitching again. I've been having a little trouble with this particular installment of Blender. Let me see what's wrong and I'll be right back again. You'll have to excuse me, I just built a fresh install of Blender and I might have a bug in it. I'm going to keep going on and see if I keep having it. One thing that I might have done wrong is I might have been in edit view when I added that, and I should be in object view. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to hit Shift A, Shift A, add mesh circle. Now I'm going to zoom way down. Oh, that's right, I'm going to change the vertex count to 16. I'm going to go into edit mode. Actually, let me just scale it. I'm going to scale this all the way down until I am roughly right at the size of that hole. And the reason I put that record in there as a reference image is I wanted to be able to get the right size for the spindle as it comes up for the turntable. Okay, I figured it out, and when all else fails, blame Blender, but in actuality I have to blame myself. I was in face select mode, and the circle being right there, you can barely see it because it's kind of dark right now. I couldn't select any faces because it's a circle without anything else but vertex and lines, and obviously you can't select faces. So all I had to do is make sure that I was back into vertex mode, hit A, and everything looks very, very good now. So I'm just going to scale it in just slightly more by hitting S and just scaling it in to right about there. And now I'm pretty well done with that record. I can turn the opacity all the way back down to 0. I can then go back into front view, and then getting right about out to here, I want to just hit E to extrude, and there we go, and I just want to hit now Z to constrain it, and I just want to take it up just a little bit, not very far, just about that high. Then I want to hit E to extrude again and constrain it to the Z axis and take it up to right about there. And what I'm going to do later on is I'm going to take these faces and extrude it out for the turntable. But right now I'm going to continue with the spindle. I'm going to hit E again, extrude it on the Z axis. Now if I don't hit Z, I'm just going to wander all over the place. But if I hit Z, it instantly locks it into place. And I can take it up to, let's say, right about there. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. In fact, I'm going to just kind of tilt a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to hit E to extrude, Z to lock it to the x-axis. I'm going to take it up about that far. I'm going to now hit S and Shift Z to exclude the Z-axis, and I'm going to scale it in just a little bit. I'm going to hit E to extrude again, lock it to the Z, take it up just a little bit, and then I'm going to S, Shift Z to constrain it, take it in a little bit further. I'm going to then hit E to extrude one final time, Z, barely take it up just a tiny bit, and then S, Shift Z to scale and lock it, and I'm going to, right about there, I'm now going to come over and hit merge. No, I'm not. I'm going to hit E to extrude one final time. Only I'm going to click right out of it. Now I've still got a bunch of vertices right there, doubled up vertices. I'm now going to hit merge at center, and I've removed a whole bunch of vertices. Now you'll remember that I've always said triangles are not your friend, and here we got just a bunch of triangles, and now we're going to get rid of those by getting into hitting Z here, and you can't even hardly see them. I'm going to go into face mode here so that we can see everything. I'm out of edit view. Get into edit view. There we go. I'm going to hit face mode real quick because this makes this a little easier. Now you can see we are definitely got a bunch of triangles, but if I select two of these faces, hit F to merge them, now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices to make a quad, and that's what you always want. Triangles are not your friend. It causes pinching and problems, and I'll do everything to make sure that I have no quads in my meshes whatsoever. So this may seem senseless to you, but about the first time you have a mesh really goof up and start looking crappy because you've got triangles in it, you'll be doing this as well. And it just works out that because I used a certain number of vertices that I'm able to get perfect. Now I've got nothing but quads in my mesh, and that's going to be my spindle. Now I can zoom in here, go into vertice mode again. I'm going to hover my mouse right there. I'm going to hit Alt and left or right click. Then I'm going to hit Shift, Alt, right click, and now I've got all this selected here. I'm going to hit 7 on my pad, go back into wireframe, find my record here, and I'm going to turn the opacity back up one more time, and I'm going to go extrude, and then I'm going to right click out of it. I'm going to hit S, Shift Z, so it's only going to go on the X and Y axis, and start dragging it out until I'm about 3/4 of the way on the record, and that looks fairly decent. You'll notice that on record players the turntables don't always stay well. I'm going to take it out just a little bit further. Right about there is good. And you can see now if I go into object view that I've got a turntable that is slightly above the floor of the base, and a spindle coming up, and everything looks good. Now you may say it's not a round turntable, but we're going to take care of that a little later on. We can easily take care of that without adding more and more vertices to make it look round. So right now I just want to get the basic shapes done. The other thing I want to make sure that we do, I'll slip back into object view, is I want to make sure that I name that RC turn, TURNTABLE, and that looks pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to bring back my lid, and I'm going to go into rear view by hitting Control and 1 on my numpad, and that puts us in the rear. 1 is for front, Control 1 is for back. And now I'm going to select my bottom mesh. I'm going to enter into edit mode, and I'm going to select that oh, one other thing, let's do this. In fact, this will make everything a lot easier. I'm going to hit Control R and right, and then Control R, left click, and then right click right out of it. Then I'm going to go into object mode, select the lid, hit Control R, get into edit mode, hit Control R, right click, Control R, left click, and then right click right out of it. And now what I've done is I've added 2 loop cuts, and the reason I've done that, we're going to go into wireframe mode now, hit Z on the numpad. I'm going to hit A to deselect everything, make sure I'm in front view, and I'm going to, with B, box select, I'm going to box select all the vertices to the one side. You don't have to worry about the turntable because it's not selected, it's in object mode, just like that. And the reason I went into wireframe is it'll select all of the vertices in the back as well. Then I'm going to hit X, delete vertices, and get rid of half of my mesh. Then I'm going to go back into object mode, select the base, go into edit view, deselect everything by hitting A, B for box, select everything on that side of the mesh, and X to delete vertices. Now go back into object view, and now we're going to add a modifier. We're going to hit add modifier, and we're going to use mirror. We're going to make sure that we hit clipping, and then this little icon up here to allow editing on both sides of the mesh while we're working on it. And now if I hit tab to go into edit view, I can, basically what I'm going to do is we're going to be able to work on one side of the mesh, and while we're working on this side of the mesh doing things, it'll automatically show up on that side of the mesh. So I'm going to go here and add a modifier to the lid as well, and that's mirror and clipping. And now that looks pretty good. We're going to go to the back side by hitting Control 1. We're going to select the bottom, go into wireframe. Actually, no, we're not going to go into wireframe. We're going to stay in shaded mode. Hit Z, and I'm going to hit that vertex and shift select that one, and I got the wrong one. For some reason it selected the one on the inside, so there we go. Z. Now what I want to do is go Shift S, cursor to selected, and that's going to put that cursor right there on the back side. And the reason it did that instead of here is because Blender right now is only looking at this side of the mesh. It's not looking at things over here because this is a mirror object of what we're doing over here. Now hitting Control 1, I'm going to go Shift Add Plane, and I'm going to X that out because I want to be in object mode when I do that. So we're going to go Shift Add Mesh Plane, switch back into Cage View now. And now it didn't repeat on the other side because we have not got a mirror modifier on this mesh. We can put a mirror modifier on it, and we probably will later on, but I'm going to leave it as is for right now. I'm just going to size it down to right about there. Then I'm going to size it again, only I'm going to size it on the Z-axis and take it down to right about like that. That looks pretty good. Now what I'm doing is I'm making the bottom part of the hinge. So now I'm going to G to grab, Z to constrain it to the Z-axis, and move it down to right at that line, just below it. I'm going to go into side view now by hitting 3. No, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it over just a little bit because it wouldn't look good to have a hinge right there. We want to be just a little more over to the side. So I'm going to hit G, constrain it to the X-axis, and just move it over just a tad, like maybe right about there. Now I'm going to go into side view by hitting 3. I'm going to kind of zoom in so I can see a little bit. Enter into edit mode by hitting Tab. And then I'm going to go E to extrude. And I'm going to just pull it out just about that far. Not very far at all, because as you know, they're not very thick. Now I'm going to go back into back view. I'm then going to go into object mode. Select that, make sure that object is selected. I'm going to go Shift D to duplicate it. And then G to Z. Constrain it to its X-axis or Z-axis, and I'm going to again move that up to just about there. Well, actually that's a little high. Let me hit G again and Z, and I'm going to move it down just a little bit to right about there. Now if you notice over here, I've got two things that say plane and plane 001. So I'm going to control select that, and I'm going to call that RC hinge, and I'll call that bottom. And then this one here, control click, I'm going to call that RC hinge top. Alright, good. Now I'm going to select both the top and the bottom, and I'm going to go Shift S, cursor to selected, and that'll put that cursor right there. Go back into side view, and then I'm going to go Shift Add Mesh Circle, and there's my circle. This time I'm going to change it to 8 vertices, and I'm going to scale that way down. You can kind of see in the picture there's a hinge, so I'm going to kind of scale it down to about that relative same shape. You don't have to be exact. And then I'm going to G, and then Y to constrain it through the Y-axis, and I'm going to turn it until I get right about there. I want it so that the hinges are kind of intersecting in there to kind of hide what the hinges are doing. Hinges normally are part of the cylinder. However, people are not going to get that close enough to see exactly what's going on. In fact, we can go G sub Y just a little bit more in there, and that's pretty good. People are not going to get in that close and inspect. By all appearances, it'll look like this hinge and this hinge are wrapped around and make the center portion of that, and it'll look just fine. So Control 1 to escape to the back. I'm going to hit G sub X to constrain it to the X-axis, and I'm going to move it all the way over to this edge right over here. And now that looks pretty good. I'm going to then switch into tab view, or tab, to put it into edit view, E to extrude, and again we're going to have to constrain it to an axis, so we'll hit X to constrain it, move it all the way to the other side, and boom, it's done. Go into view here, solid view, hit Control and right click or left click, and we're going to RC hinge CYLINDER, cylinder. And you may wonder why we have 3 objects instead of just making it all one object. All this will become apparent a little later on, because we're going to join these meshes in a peculiar way so that when we animate the lid, this part of the hinge stays with here, and this part of the hinge stays here, and then everything rotates around the cylinder. So I want to leave them as 3 objects for right now. Later on I'll be doing some joining in a peculiar way. Also, I want to be able to select these independently when I do further modification on them. So it's just kind of important to kind of keep things the way that I've got it right now. Also, I'm not going to create the hinge on the other side yet. I could do that with a mirror modifier, but I'd have to add a mirror modifier for this one, and this one. And to me, that's a lot of bother. I have another quicker way of doing that. I'm going to finish this almost totally on this side, and then we're going to duplicate it to the other side in kind of a fancy little way. So we're just going to kind of leave it as it is for right now. Okay, now you can see that we kind of have our basic shapes going on here. We've got our lid. We've got at least 1 hinge, getting ready to have 2 hinges. We've got our base and our, like I said, our lid. The molding isn't quite right yet, but right now we're going to be working in clay form. We're going to get our basic shapes done. We also got the turntable in there, and that's good. So we've actually made quite a bit of progress. I'm going to put a hold on the tutorial for right now. There's plenty of skills here that if we have any new people, that they can kind of practice at these skills and practice with these meshes until they get it down. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because trust me, I make tons of them. Next session will be animating the lid so that we can raise it to work on these inside as well. So we'll be able to flip the lid in and up and down. We'll also be working on tweaking and molding, or tweaking the modeling, and start adding some edge loops to give more shape and form to the mesh. We're going to be adding some other modifiers that will make things just look a lot better. If you notice on real wood furniture, right now we have perfectly square little edges here, and furniture doesn't have that. It's slightly rounded. Our turntable is not round. Neither is our cylinder here. Is not round. It's kind of octagonal. So there's a lot of tweaking that we have to do, and we're going to do all that with edge loops. Also, if you notice on our model here, we have our faceplate, so I think we'll have time to get the faceplate in, and we need to shape in our speakers. And I think we're going to handle all of that next session. I'll be able to work a lot faster, and maybe I'll quit blaming Blender for mistakes. But we're going to leave it right here for right now. As before, there is a PDF version of this tutorial on my website, which can be downloaded along with the blend file at the state at what we're at right now. If you have any questions or concerns, you can either add to my post, make a comment on my post, or there's an email link on my website. It says contact me, and it says you can email me, and at the end of that little word there, it doesn't actually list my email, but if you click on the link there, it should open up your email, whatever you use, provider, and you should be able to send me an email, and trust me, I will answer them right away. But anyways, you have a great day, and happy blending.